Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm blessed to be with the double B, Blaine Bartlett, the greatest mentor that I've had and an amazing friend as well, executive leader around the world, and is known for his leadership. So I always have to bring in someone to raise the bar to challenge Blaine, especially when it comes to leaders and leadership, because he's in a different league than I am, and he's still mentoring me and coaching me into being an extraordinary, intelligent follower and understand where my ego has edged goodness and gold out of my life over the years. But number one, I want to thank you, Blaine Bartlett, for being here.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I love these Thursdays.
And I decided to serve up someone that can speak your language, your frequency, someone who has had the experience worthy of a Blaine Bartlett. He used to serve as the SVP and Chief Strategy Officer of this small company called Neiman Marcus. First of all, Steve Dennis, welcome to Office Hours.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And thank you, as I am married for 26 years and with 3 daughters, 24, 22, and 19, for taking all my money. I appreciate that over the years as well. But they certainly look beautiful in all of the unbelievable products and services that Marcus stands for. Now you have a new book, and It's Leaders Leap. I love the title, by the way. Transforming your company at the speed of disruption. I have a saying today, and I started pre-chasm internet in 1992 with Westlaw, and then into the middleware space, and then ran Samsung's phone division, well-versed in disruption. And I thought things moved fast in 1992 with 9600 baud modems. One thing I've learned now that I'm 56 years old, not 26 years old, is that at the time of a decision or a time of an agreement, that time, emotion, and value change. But because of technology, time, emotion, and value change at an exponential pace. And it creates a real difficult challenge for leaders. As you both, Steve and Blaine, have a lot more experience than I and have understood time and disruption for longer than I have, I wanted to start in understanding the idea of leaping as a leader in order to facilitate some sort of transformation concerning the speed in which time, emotion, and value change.
Yeah, well, my approach to this material, I mean, some of the origin of it comes from, even though it's not a retail specific book, comes from my time in retail, which was observing over the past 20 years how so many companies, big companies, successful companies historically, basically watched the last 20 years happen to them. Their approach to this change, which I agree with you, is often more exponential than linear, has been kind of slow and steady, a lot of incremental change rather than taking some of those bolder leaps. And those leaps can be, to me, it's fundamentally about trying to aim higher to deliver more value to the customer, particularly since customer needs are changing, but you also have all sorts of competition. So I wanted to try to get across this idea, particularly in the beginning of the book, that if you're moving slowly, if you're not keeping pace with the speed of disruption, you're going to get so far behind that you either can't catch up or you have to make a very big leap, which of course, that can bring a lot more risk to the table.
I love that, Steve. The idea of a leap, I think it was Neville Chamberlain at one point in time said you can't leap a chasm in 2 bounds.
Yes.
You've just got to take the plunge here. And David's heard me mention this before, but the problem, from my perspective, the problem with change, particularly the rate of change that we're encountering today, isn't so much the changes themselves, it's the disruption to existing relationships that people have with fill in the blank. Time, money, resource, fill that in. With the way that you're looking at this, the idea of mitigating, if you can, that disruptive nature of change, what are some of the things that you can point to for leaders, particularly not enterprise leaders, but leaders in smaller organizations? What should they be paying attention? Because I was struck by your comment about people watch the change happen. you can't be in the bleachers to do this.
Right.
What are you going to suggest here?
Well, one thing about this book, just I'll mention really quickly, is there's lots of books on disruption. There's lots of books on transformational leadership. What I try to bring to the party is both suggestions about what people get wrong about strategy, what people misunderstand, but I think more importantly, in some respects, the personal characteristics. So what I see happening a lot is ways that leaders' egos get in the way of some of the changes they need to make. Either they're afraid to admit they don't understand what's going on and bring people in, or reliance on what's made them successful in the past. One of the points I make is that it's very likely the case that what got you here isn't going to get you there, number one, but in some cases may actually get in the way of you making the changes you need to, because you're so locked in on, this is what made me successful, so I'm just going to keep doing a maybe slightly better version of that. I think another piece is being willing to do the homework, which sounds like an obvious thing, but I think that, and this is maybe related a little bit to the ego point of just doing the same kinds of things you've always done. When technology is changing quickly, when customer behaviors, wants, needs, desires are changing quickly, you've really got to dig deep and kind of open the aperture in terms of the kinds of things that are going to be important to the decisions you need to make. And then I guess the other one I would talk about, and I just had an article published in the Harvard Business Review about this idea that safe is risky. But that means, by that I mean, doing what seems safe to you is often the thing that will get you into trouble because you move too slowly or you don't take those bold chances, which means you have to come face to face with your fears and really understanding what are those things you're afraid of that keep you stuck. And a lot of times that's, looking foolish, you might get fired, people won't like you, you open yourself to criticism. But, ultimately, if you don't do some of those things, you could be out of business or just kind of in this zone of irrelevance for an extended period of time.
And you see that what got you here may not get you there with the greatest entrepreneurs in the world, whether it's Gates or Jobs or Musk today. They all suffer from the fear reaction that they know what they don't know because of past successes. And you're one of the leading consultants, strategy consultants. SageBerry is the name of your consulting firm, and you work with dozens of brands on their growth strategy. Do you see any common denominators between those companies of things that leaders should look out for?
I think if I had to pick one, and I work with a pretty wide variety of companies, but if I had to pick one, I think it is this misunderstanding of risk. I've seen a lot of companies, including some that I've worked with directly, that basically gang tackle one big idea or maybe two big ideas rather than a portfolio approach, rather than kind of building this test and learn culture of experimentation. I just think I think it's been hard for a long time to be able to sort out what's going to work, right from the get-go. But I think particularly now, like if you think about what's going on with AI as just one example, most people don't really understand the potential, and it's impossible for you to completely see your way clear to what the world's going to look like in the next few years. So I think that means not only do you have to be curious and be a good student, and like I said earlier, open the aperture and bring more people into the equation, but you also have to try a lot of stuff. I mean, that's the one thing I've learned from being working in innovation for a long period of time and seeing some of these companies that either fail or successful is it's not necessarily that they've worked out the perfect process of innovation or hired the most brilliant people. It's that they try a lot of stuff and that they're willing to admit failure. I often say quitting is overrated. There's a little bit of this kind of hustle culture, never give up. Well, actually giving up is often the smartest thing you can possibly do because it opens you up to doing stuff that's more valuable. So I think the successful companies really have that culture of experimentation. The unsuccessful companies tend to be looking for that one big idea and kind of lock in on one way of going about it.
Yeah, I think people get confused between quitting and giving up on something in the guise of expansion. And so we may give up on an idea, a business unit, a marketing campaign, but that's different than quitting. And, where I think a lot of confusion in that hustle culture is I'm not a quitter, but sometimes we blind ourselves. You may not be a quitter, but you're an idiot. And if you look at things and expanding out your skills, knowledge, and desire, aligned with what's working, what's stable, what you think may work in the future, is definitely a more plausible way to be successful. And there's no exchange for experience. And between the three of us, although I'm the youngest here, I assume, only because I know Blaine's age, I paid the most dummy tax. So it's nice to have guys who learn faster than I sharing the wisdom and giving the young entrepreneurs faith that there is a lot of opportunity if we read books like Leaders Leap, and we read books like Compassionate Capitalism, and we take on mentorship from some of the world's greatest leaders themselves, like Steve Dennis and Blaine Bartlett. Steve, we have many more shows. I hope you will be open to joining and having deeper conversations with Blaine and I to help our community.
Sure. I look forward to that. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here, Steve.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Stay dry down in Dallas. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
Dry in Dallas. There's a phrase you don't hear often.
No, I got stuck for 5 hours in a thunderstorm coming back from a mastermind the weekend, and missed a little bit of golf with my 14-year-old, but made his birthday there on St. Patty's Day, as you know.
13.
You know,
14.
Let's make a short story long, or a long story short. We'll bring on Kuurt Long, and he's out of Florida. There's plenty of rain there as well. CEO and co-founder of Bunker, entrepreneur, philanthropist, which we love to see there as well. And he's the co-chair for the Long Family Force for Good, which is obviously aligned with my mission in life. Welcome to Office Hours, Kuurt.
Yeah, it's great to see you again, Dave. I love talking to you guys. We just got back from Miami. We did some kite surfing down there and stopped over at the Miami Open. And I should have thought of you if you were down there. I could have stopped by, but we had an awesome time, and it's a beautiful day right here in Florida. Again, we're up in St. Pete.
Yeah, well, come and visit me at the Masters in a couple of weeks. We'd love to see you at the Masters in a couple of weeks, because you're one of the coolest engineers I know that have a priority of non-negotiables. And I kind of want to start there, because you've lived such a great journey. In order to, work and be a force for good, empowering others to goodness, or connecting to goodness, as I say in my book, we need a prioritization of non-negotiables. I wanted to start with that with you. You're very clear, whether as the co-founder of Bunker, as an entrepreneur and a philanthropist, what your non-negotiables are. Where can you give people some encouragement of having non-negotiables?
I love that you asked me hard questions that I had no visibility on. But I've been thinking about this a lot, David. We've had time to reflect about what went right in our lives, in my life. Here's the number one non-negotiable: that we are made in a divine image of whoever your creator is. We can agree there's some kind of a creator. And you and I are both like miracles to be on earth and made in some divine image of that creator. And that means I need to treat you with respect, and you need to treat me with respect as a foundational principle. And like, if we can't agree to that, if we can't agree that I have to treat you as I would myself, then it's going to be a bumpy road. And so that's my foundational non-negotiable. And we can build up the stack, but that's my starting point.
I love it.
There's a embedded in that philosophy, I think, Kuurt, is a notion of generosity. And my wife Cynthia runs the Unstoppable Foundation, who David is the chairman of, on the board, and I'm on the board as well. She's looking at the generosity impact. I mean, if you just kind of think of generosity having impact, there's a ripple effect of being generous. And the idea of treating somebody where the golden rule comes in, or even the platinum rule comes into play here, this idea of being generous is kind of steeped in the notion of it's an abundant universe. And it's an abundant universe in the sense that it makes room for all kinds of uniqueness. It doesn't mean not sameness, but uniqueness.
All right. So now this is going to be easy build for me. All right. So the
Good.
next
I love
concept,
setting things up.
yeah, I
Kurt
mean,
speaks like an entrepreneur. He's like stacking and building.
yeah.
Everything's in the lingo of an engineer. I love it.
So the next kind of where we go from, we have mutual respect. We establish that. Are we perfect? No, but we have mutual respect. That's our aspiration to treat each other. Well, that means that we can listen to each other. So like at businesses I've built in the last 10 years, I've in essence said, we're going to build the business on listening. And that has this inherent thing in it to say, because I respect you, I believe that you have something to contribute that I don't have. In other words, I hope to know something to contribute that you don't have, but I have to believe that you know something. So no matter how you speak, you could speak with a drawl, you could speak like you're from the South, you could speak like you're from the Northeast, you could look a certain way. I don't care. What we are looking for is the content, and is that content additive to something that I know, and hopefully upon letting you finish speaking that I will be able to contribute something back that's additive. And just to connect the last dots, Blaine, is like this idea that we are too often, we're brought up through a system that pits us against one another individually. We get measured as individuals in school and everything we do. But in work, and in sport, in life, we have to look at partnerships to say, what do you do that's better in a certain area than I do, and what do I do, and how do we complement these partnerships together? And now all of a sudden my power within a business is really, how well can I partner with people of different kinds up and down an organizational stack, from the person that might do the lowest job to the person to the upper job, because I see something in them that I don't have, and hopefully they see something in me, and we're going to learn together to be more powerful together.
Yeah.
And that's the total philosophy of my people oriented leadership. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's my book.
I love that.
There you go.
Now before I let you go, I'm going to make your PR people really happy, but
Yeah.
also build more credibility than I even needed to with your mindset, your heart set. But we really haven't talked about the handset. We talked about the non-negotiables, and you have built a family business that has taken you around the world in business and adventure. You work with your son, who's your co-founder, but you do it for other families. There's a huge threat that most families don't realize today. It's needing a digital safe haven. Unfortunately, in my personal life, I wish I had Bunker. It's at bunker.life. But to be able to store and share passwords without the dark web grabbing them, without our own personal identities being stolen, and our credit and our family safety, financial and emotional safety at threat, and it grows and grows and grows. For $99 a year, you have a safe haven. And
Yeah.
I was wondering how this idea to serve as an ally for everyone, for all the families, starts with your own, and has really built or stacked the philosophy and the practices at Bunker, not only serve your family with the Long family force, but to help others do the same.
Yeah. So, and by the way, we're going to announce some pretty big donations here out of the foundation side. We're not going to have time to cover those today. They're very exciting. Some of them are global.
We have
some
other
of them are
shows. We have
national.
other shows. Me and Blaine will make sure
We got a
everybody
lot of
knows.
places to put you.
I have great news coming literally in the next days. It's going to be 3 incredible projects. But sticking to Bunker, it's so, I've spent 25 years of my career seeing what happens when people are vulnerable to bad guys. And you have to accept, like, it's hard for us to accept as a normal person that there's bad people. Well, they exist. And when you make yourself vulnerable to you, I spent 25 years of my life seeing what they do to human beings and how merciless they are. And so as we sold the last business 5 years ago, we took a big break, but we said, well, what do we have to contribute? Well, we know about security. We've transformed healthcare with privacy and security, something no one ever thought anyone could do. We did it successfully. Let's do that for the rest of the world. Let's build Bunker, where families can communicate securely, where privacy is a human right, your data is never sold, and let's take down the big security issues. You named one of them. It's a super easy to use, affordable password manager, secure documents that's always available to you, and then secure communications. And that started out with our family, but it's spread to our friends and family, who's a lot of athletes. So literally, the tennis players around the world, professional tennis players, and even ones that you would recognize the names of that are in the top 5, top 10, their teams are using Bunker to secure, organize, communicate, so they can stay focused on their craft. Meaning, my joy is that a person gets to focus on their craft and not to have the complication because they don't know where documents are, they had a security problem, all these things. So that's the joy I derive out of it, and that's what I have to contribute as a competency to society. And we're going to get paid for that. We're starting to do that really well.
As always,
That's
super
it, Dave.
success. No matter what he's done, whether it's a space shuttle he was working on, or building the healthcare system as a secure platform, or
Right.
helping families, and more importantly, the major focus of philanthropy with Blaine and other shows as he makes the announcement. He is not short of being long when it comes to helping others. And Charlie, the king of puns, Kuurt Long, just make us a promise to come back, give us a new announcement, have other shows. In the meantime, everyone, bunker up, go to bunker.life, secure your family's future digitally with a safe haven. Kuurt, it's just a pleasure. Throw you some curveballs instead of some big softballs. You hit them out of the park.
I get so excited just doing these, David and Blaine. Thank you very much. I literally get so jacked up, and I'm going to talk to you guys. So we'll see you out there, and we'll stay in touch. Take care.
Perfect.
Congrats. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kuurt. Congratulations on the announcements too.
Kuurt J. Long, entrepreneur and athlete, philanthropist, most importantly. He's humble in his efforts, as is Blaine Bartlett. The Rob is in the house. This is Leap Day. You've heard of Leap Year. We've got a bunch of leapers in the house. We have the Leaders Leap, Entrepreneurial Leap, and we have E-Leap. And we're here to shine as we leap into the future. Rob Dube. Rob
That's
Dube.
okay. How you doing?
Half of my family's home in Detroit, Michigan. Welcome to Office Hours.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, great to see you. Thanks for having me. What a blast it was listening a little bit to Kuurt.
Yeah, we've had a great day. We had the, Chief Strategy Officer, Neiman Marcus, and Kuurt, obviously a super successful entrepreneur with several exits and on his way to his next exit as always. But we all light to shine, and you have a new book, and we want to liberate other people to shine. You're the co-founder of Image One and the visionary, of course, in looking at the disciplines in managing and maximizing our energy. I believe we all have the same energy. We just have to figure out what we're doing to interfere with it. In that respect, or paradigm shift, what are you discussing in that idea of the omniscient, all-powerful that we're part of in order to shine?
Well, we want you to be a ferocious Buddha, for starters.
Thank you.
There you go. That was so perfect when I saw that. The business that we have and what who the book is targeted to are driven entrepreneurs, driven leaders in this world. And for us, it's how looking inward is really the key to unlocking true entrepreneurial freedom, which is the subtitle. And it's not something that, many entrepreneurs have been focused on. We're often focused on our outer world success. We are driven people. We go hard each and every day, which is an absolute blessing, but it's also a curse. And oftentimes we don't stop to ask ourselves why we're going so hard and what is this all about? When we often climb the top of the mountain, we take a survey of what's happened, and we, for some reason, don't always feel fulfilled. And I'm here to say in the book that there's really no mountain. You're just on a journey. Yeah. And so we want to teach you how to harness your driven nature, make decisions from love, not fear, from your heart, not your ego, and to continue that drive, but do it with some inner peace. And we believe when you take that approach, you'll actually be much more successful, not just in your businesses, but in your life.
The idea of that kind of success, I love where you're coming from, and my ferocious Buddha friend uh, uh, is, I think, an exemplar of this in a lot of ways. I mean, he's incredibly active. There's no question about that. But there's a for the sake of what that anchors everything, that actually brings meaning to it. And you've got another book out that I'm very struck with, because I think it is an interesting melding of what it is that Shine is actually working towards as well. And it's called Do Nothing.
Yeah.
So as an entrepreneur, can you enlighten us, Mr. Ferocious Buddha here, can you enlighten us about where Do Nothing actually comes into play with this? Because I love where you're going and where you have gone with this concept.
Yeah. So, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 14.
Yep.
When I graduated college, I started the company. I still own it. I don't run it, but I still own it. In between, we sold it and bought it back at a certain point. And I had some trauma growing up. I had some difficult circumstances. Oftentimes, we find this to be the case with entrepreneurs. So I was no different. And what I started to do was go inside in my mid-20s to try to understand, why was I feeling the way I was feeling so often and not showing up the way I needed to show up. So tried many different things, but one thing that really stuck for me was I took on a meditation practice, just a practice of being stillness. So I'm not here to sell anybody on meditation. It's not for everybody, honestly. It was just something that seemed to work well for me. I started to do extended retreats, and people in my peer groups, my entrepreneurial peer groups, would say, "What are you doing on these extended retreats? Sitting around and just doing nothing?" And so hence the name of the book. But what I talk about in Do Nothing, and there's a portion of this in Shine as well, is that we must take time in stillness. Even if we can find 30 minutes a day, and we do recommend at least 30, whatever it is you're doing, whether it's meditation or prayer or journaling or contemplation or some mix of all four or all three or three of them. We've got to get our minds settled and allow our bodies to settle so our souls can catch up. We just go so hard. We never stop. And so this is just an important part of the process to finding inner peace.
Yeah, and this is just real quick, David. The Soul of Business podcast that I host. This is one of the things that we keep coming back to. Yeah, with every guest I've had on there, stillness, quietude. The imagination lives at the threshold of the spirit or of the soul, and until I get quiet, I can't actually leverage imagination.
Yes. Absolutely,
Yes.
100%. You have to get still to let it to come up. It's so true. And there's a great quote I always like to share from Anne Lamott, and she says, "My mind is like a bad neighborhood. I try to never go there alone." Maybe you've heard it. And it's so true, because I think when you're a driven person, and I'm just focusing on driven leaders, entrepreneurs right now, because there's other people that have busy minds as well. But the people that we're talking to, I think subconsciously they know when they sit down, it's going to be crazy time. And it's too scary to sit down and deal with all that coming up. And so you got to work through that. And it's a practice. It's a muscle that you work. And the rewards are great.
It's amazing. I speak in terms of activities, and I meditate and have for 17 years every day for 20 minutes. And I wouldn't the last person you ever would have bet that would have meditated previous to those 17 years. And in fact, when I went into a meditation workshop in India, my wife thought I was cheating on her because she couldn't imagine I was at a webinar a seminar for meditation, just scouring. I think she had 3 private detectives in India following me around. Like, is he actually learning to meditate? And then adequately tested me. And just recently I had experience with Blaine where we had a little bit of a challenge from someone that we knew, and they were extremely worried, which is a wasted emotion, which you can learn through the activity of stillness and quiet. And I was so proud of myself because not only did I stay at peace and ease and say, it's already done, don't worry. But Blaine in the background, as everything turned out perfectly in divine time, when the person called me to tell me, hey, everything worked out perfectly in divine time. And Blaine told me not even to call because he said, you probably haven't even thought about it since you told me it was going to work out. And I thought to myself, I've really elevated what I do, that someone else has recognized that's now my personality. And my wife has stopped paying private investigators to follow me when I meditate.
Good.
So as I finish up, and my dog's excited, but as I finish up, this reconciliation of a ferocious Buddha is very difficult. And I think unless you see stillness, quietness as an activity, you can't convince these avid entrepreneurs, people like Blaine and I suck 24 hours out of every day, but I am a Buddhist. I allow in divine direction and divine time the progress to be made. And it is a practice and a muscle. What's one lesson or one piece of advice you can give to people like the former David Meltzer that didn't believe that stillness was an activity?
Well, again, I think it's about sitting down and committing to it. And, it's a practice. You're working that muscle, as I mentioned, and you stick with it. And, then you see the results in time. This is not a hack. And this is a lifetime practice, much like gratitude. I never met somebody who was successful and humble that wasn't grateful and had an intentional practice around it. So, whatever you're doing in your business to learn your craft and be the best at it, it's that kind of thing. It doesn't come overnight, but over 17 years, in your case, 20 in mine.
40 in mine.
Yeah, 40. Okay, there you go.
Now he's aging himself. He really
now I'm aging myself. I started meditating in 70. Oh, good Lord. Yeah, 72.
Oh, good Lord.
Oh, good Lord. 1972.
Well, and we'd love to share in the successes that we have in the podcast that you have. Check out Do Nothing Retreat. Check out the hosting of Leading the Genuine Care podcast, an enlightened world that shines together, liberates other people to shine. I call it a community of people that want to help each other, know people that can help each other. And Rob, you say our neighborhood, our frequency, and we have many other shows. And any time we can help your community or you can help ours, we're going to invite you. Check out robdube.com. You'll find him there. So many successes to help you in your entrepreneurial leap. And his new book, Shine, is helping light the way. And as we all know, the Tao is the way. So shine that light, my friend, and come back and visit us.
Absolutely, will do. Thank you for having me. You guys.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob. We'll see you soon. Great job. There's something about those guys from Michigan. I'll just say, I love them. All right. That's
Detroit.
Awesome. All right, Blaine, I know Bill's running a little late. We'll see if he does join here because we're on a tight schedule as always. But let's a takeaway of the day, and so we can finish up on time. Believe it or not, I got to run down to the DMV. So always stay on track. What's your takeaway of the day?
I'm gonna, our guest that isn't here yet is going to be talking about bliss, and I think not to be trite about this, but every guest that we've had today, in some way, shape, or form, has talked about this inner peace, this quality of equanimity. My word for it here would be, finding a way to just navigate life without perturbation. There's a lot of stuff going on around me, but it doesn't require me to be perturbed. It really doesn't. I can be settled as I navigate the stuff that goes on in this time and space that I call reality. And it doesn't have to stick to me.
And through that is a belief, in understanding the idea of the ferocious Buddha. And I think all of our guests today, and you'll find that our last guest too, Bill, if he makes it here within our time limits, that you'll find that he as well is a ferocious Buddha, and the successes and challenges along the way create these extraordinary outcomes.
Yes.
without attaching to them. And I see your career that way. I know mine's been that way. The extraordinary outcomes all have come from the progress of the behaviors and the practice and the improvements without quitting, but yet expanding and learning. And gratitude, again, in your blissful takeaway, is a backbone. To find light, love, and lessons in everything is the backbone to bliss. That is the perspective of shining with everyone that we've had on. I just want to compliment as well. I know our producers are stressing in the back because Bill's a little late. We may have to, just because of our time restraints, reschedule Bill. Is he here? Is that? Oh, there he is. Oh, thank you. She's like, you're an idiot. He's right there. I was looking below on the green room.
I'm very sorry. I was a few minutes late, and I hate being late. And I just respect people's time. And then, of course, I log onto my computer and I didn't have Chrome. So
I get it.
So anyways,
Bill, I will tell you, we appreciate you so much for coming on. And I learned a lesson about being late because I'm a time freak. I think they should have added to the love languages time. I would have signed up and said, time is my love language. But I learned a great lesson when I am late, which is just never say sorry I'm late. I always say thank you for your patience. It has that gracious. But man, your career is exceptional. The company you've collaborated with and the vision that you have, and being now an e-mobility expert, obviously eBliss Global, CEO of the bike company. But you've worked with some great companies along the way. How long ago did you see the e-bike phenomenon? I mean, you worked in the industry, the mobility industry, the car industry. You've been around, and there's been, electronic cars. You've seen it for the last 20 years. Batteries change. When did you start realizing, someday we're going to have these e-bikes and it's going to change the world and our environment, by the way?
So, excuse me. So first of all, thank you for having me. Second of all, so when I launched the transmission business, so I started a transmission business in my garage. This, incredible team of people, amazing engineering team, made 800 patents, 16,000 patent claims, made this really cool business. And we launched it in Europe. And because I had two ends of the business. One was a technology development business that we were trying to develop the technology for more sophisticated applications into automotive and just all the challenges that goes on from an engineering predictability perspective in that world. Transmission is really the heartbeat of any vehicle or any system, right? You take energy, you got to use energy. The transmission translates that into usable energy. That's what transmission does. And so one aspect was technology development. The second aspect was build a commercial product. So we started to build a bicycle transmission. Bicycle is the most efficient drivetrain ever created by man. 1 unit of energy at the pedals equals 1 unit of energy on the ground. Hundreds of millions of bicycles sold, billions of bicycles on the planet. I mean, it's a crazy business. Well, so we launched it in Europe. And we were running around, and as we were rolling this out, e-bikes were just starting to climb up the food chain in Europe. We had an office in Amsterdam, had some big customers in Holland, and we saw, this was 2009, and we took Bike of the Year on an e-bike in Amsterdam. And at the time, that was heresy, right? I mean, if it ain't Dutch, it ain't much, right? And they ride bikes all over the place.
Yep.
Little known fact, 1973, when the oil embargo was going on around the world, the Dutch government started building the infrastructure that they now have, and everybody thinks they've been at it for hundreds of years. Just 1973, although for me that feels like hundreds of years. And the Dutch were very skeptical about e-bikes, because again, they're Dutch, right? They ride up on the dikes around that protect Holland. But then all of a sudden people started to try them, and I was riding them. And what I realized is that the market expansion for mobility more than triples. I mean, it's geometric, because people ask me, well, you get less exercise with an e-bike. Well, that's actually not true. You ride longer. So this is what happened. Is this trial happened in 2009, and honestly, it was incredible. Price per units jumped up, revenue per units for all the people in the supply chain, everything went crazy. So now all of a sudden you have this tsunami it all starts with consumer demand, right? Everything starts with what the consumer wants. And when the consumer started to try these things, it's not your father's Dutch bike, right? It is an e-mobility product. The average Dutch consumer rides 18 kilometers to and from work. They own 2.5 bikes. This is 28% of all rides that happen, transportation rides in Holland, happen on a bike. 1% happens in the United States. So one of the things I saw was this wasn't just going to be a Dutch phenomenon. The experience was so remarkable that and this is all about trial, when consumers try this, they're going to buy it. So the other interesting tipping point since then, watching Europe go to 5 million e-bikes, is 80% of the mountain bikes sold in Germany are now e-mountain bikes. It's the first market I've seen in the world tip over into e-mobility, right? And again, spending enormous amounts of time in Europe and Germany, the German consumer is a technical consumer, right? They understand, it's the technique, it's the technology. And as they start to get it, I just watched this start to compound, because then they start to innovate, right? So then they start to innovate, and then capital starts to pour into the market. We put $165 million into developing our technology, right? That's a lot of money. That's nothing compared to what's being spent right now on e-bikes and e-bike development on technology. Bosch Corporation, and I don't know their exact numbers, but I think they're going to do $2 billion in e-bike components in Europe this year. That's stunning, right? That's a car industry. So, again, growing up in Detroit, working for Ford Motor Company as a young person, being trained in automotive and transportation, loving this business like crazy, transportation. When I made a decision a couple of years ago that the U.S. was going to do the same thing. And 1.8 million e-bikes sold last year. 2016, there were 65,000. People don't understand, Toyota sold 1.9 million cars last year in America. So e-bikes almost outsold Toyota. This is so, and anyway, so this phenomenon has now started to take hold, and it is just about the consumer experience, right? So anyways, I could talk about this for a long time, but I'll let you ask questions.
Well, I take away so much from there as well. Blaine, I'm sure your mind's wandering. What do you got for our final question for Bill?
Yeah, I went to university in the Netherlands.
There you go.
Yeah, and I'm very familiar with bikes, and this is the very late 1960s, early 1970s, and the
Once
fact
again,
that they've
age
taken
yourself.
to this, like,
This
no
is
pun intended,
Blaine's
ducks in
aging
water.
himself all day long. This is great.
Yes, I've been dating myself a lot here. I'm just fascinated because I've been on an e-bike, but and this goes back about maybe 10 years. The last time I was on an e-bike.
Sure.
What has been the technological advance, if you will, the technological shift between my e-bike of 10, 12 years ago and what I might purchase today?
So I guess I'm going to boil it down to a couple different fundamentals. One is the amount of investment. When I tell you we put $165 million, we actually put more than that, but let's just say I raised $165 million. We probably put $240 million in total into it. And again, when you just shook your head, that's a crazy number, right?
Crazy.
It's nothing compared to what's being spent today. So when you apply that much capital to anything into a market segment, you're going to see a couple things. One, you're going to see integration. So the bike that you were riding was what I would call a Generation 1 e-bike. It's a Frankenstein, right? You go to Walmart, you buy a bike, you put an electric motor on it, you put a battery on it, you ride it around. Well, that thing was not designed for, 165 Newton meters of torque and then adding another 80 or 90 Newton meters of torque to it. So lots of things break. Most e-bikes still sold in the US are of that ilk, and that's a problem, right? One of the things we see in the US is that there is no what I call system level engineering done on the e-bike, right? This is what we do differently. 16 character VIN, we do a complete we engineer the whole system. That's a huge change to what you're seeing. And what we're doing is you're gonna see that start to become the natural point, because everybody's going to go there. So one is integration. Two is the failure points. So what is the mean time between failures on the bike and how many of those failures are going to see? You just see, I can't even tell you, wires all over the place and chains. People don't realize that a chain starts to rust 20 minutes after you take it out of the box, right? So why do you put a chain on a bike? So belt drives, sealed transmissions, much better batteries. The tragedy of these fires that happens, that's happened largely publicized in New York City. Little known fact are solely based on the Federal Trade Commission allowing Amazon to ship components to the U.S. and not have to get them inspected if they ship and their value is under $800. Well, they put in less than $800 value on the bike, they ship it to the US, nobody has to inspect it. So, so the guy who's building that battery is off in a field in southern China, and I have nothing against the Chinese, got lots of Chinese friends and great Chinese factories. But if you don't control them, it's just like somebody, in Brooklyn building an e-bike or battery. Not going to be, you got to have a clean room. You got to have, that's what this capital, that's why this linkage to capital. The other thing I would tell you that's changing today is the integration of all kinds of automotive technology. Anti-lock brakes. Can you imagine? It's happening. We're putting them on our bikes. Turn signals, GPS on off. Come find your bike. All those things are now readily available. 10 years ago, everybody looked at me like I was a Martian. When I told people what I was doing, they all looked at me and said, "Yeah, what?" I told a guy, a CEO of a bike company, huge bike company, by the way. I told him we were putting a VIN on our bikes, and I'm tracing all manufacturing processes back to the operator and all the suppliers and everything else. And he looked at me and goes, "Why? This isn't a car, it's a bike." And I just sat there and I said, because I think the members of Jurassic Park also didn't realize that there was meteorites coming. And you guys don't realize the consumer wants a better experience. So Blaine, as you ask, that consumer drive for that better experience, that's what's really changing the industry.
Oh, I now have an idea for an anniversary present for my wife.
Oh, darn. I was going to get her one.
I was just going to say,
I'll get a two-seater for you, Blaine.
Yeah, there you go.
You know who to call, Blaine.
We're calling you. That's for sure. If you think what you were saying was nuts, I think people wanted to put a street jacket on you, Bill, when you told them I was spending $240 million to do it. It's one thing to say you're going to do it. It's nuts. But you put $250 million into it. And I agree with you that you educated us. We have so many other shows and we want to invite you back because I have a ton more questions for you, if that's okay. Blaine and I both, on our shows, because it is the future and it's a future of bliss. CEO of Ebis Global, the amazing Bill Klehm. What a cleanup hitter. You were well worth the wait, buddy. Thanks for coming.
Thanks very much. Again, apologize for being late. Please forgive me. Come back anytime. Okay.
I love it. Thank you.
All right. Back.
Blaine, Bill, thank you. And I got to jump to the DMV. I love you. BlaineBartlett.com, my mentor, the amazing consultant and mentor around the world with the biggest companies in the world and the greatest leaders in the world. Blaine Bartlett, I'll see you soon. Send my love to your wife.
You got it, buddy. Have a good Friday.
You. I will. Good Friday is coming tomorrow. I'm going to New York, Vegas, Phoenix. We got John Daly, Josh Allen, Marshall Falk. You want to join us? All you got to do is email us, david@dmeltzer.com. Text me because I can't keep up with the activity. We have 200 cities in 1 year. Are you kidding me? 949-298-2905. Come join us. Most importantly, be more interested than interesting. Be kind to your future self and do good deeds. We love you. See you tomorrow.